have them actually
No,
look
that's-
at you.
I
The
just
ones
thought
who
about the other
learn.
thing we should have said is we need 2 more projectors, one for that wall, one for that wall. When the students turn around to their computers, they can still see what's on the screen.
Yeah, they need to just be looking. So, are we ready to begin? Are you
I
ready?
believe so, yeah.
Okay, so, all right. So I'm going to talk about security procedures this morning. And this is coming from your Cisco book, 12.2, Security Procedures. There are lots of procedures that need to be applied in our IT realm when we're dealing with our IT resources. So can you think of IT resources that would need security to be put on them to subvert any type of vulnerabilities? And when I talk about IT resources, I'm talking about your, anything that you use technology-wise. Lewis?
Your computer?
Okay.
Phone.
Your phone, yeah. Anything else that you can think of that may be beyond just a local or a small network, like an individual network, that would be more business related that we also have?
Like ATM machines?
Okay, ATM machines?
Your
That's
routers?
yours?
Credit card.
Okay, yeah, routers, switches, servers, everything that we would deal with IT resources need to be secured in some form. Now, physical security is one thing, and then we have something else that's called logical security. Logical security is the security that's placed on machines using different types of software. So usually utilities that are within the operating system themselves, like the Windows operating system or Windows Server operating systems, they come with utilities that you can apply security through different types of controls. And that's called a security policy. So we will set security policies in order to make sure that our computers are maintained and that everything on our network, all of our data, all of our systems in that organization are kept safe and secure from any type of malicious attacks or other types of vulnerabilities that can just be found in software itself. So with Windows, which is what we mainly focus on in this course, is the Windows operating system and Windows Server operating systems, because in business, that's really the mainline systems that we run into from a user perspective. So the Windows local security policy can be implemented on computers that are not part of an Active Directory domain. So here we have an Active Directory domain, which means we have a server, that's a centralized server that runs Active Directory. And when we log into our machines, we log in and are authenticated through that server that we can have access. And so the security policy is actually placed on the server. If you just have your local machine at home, you're probably not connected to a central server, you're not running all that in your home environment, or even in a small business environment. So you're going to implement the security policy at the local level, which is just this local machine. Okay, so this command right here, well, it's not a command actually, it's just a console that you can type into your search button. So if I had you bring that up on your machine, you could just type in the search here and do secpol.msc. Well, not that time. Did it not want to do it? There it went. I hit enter too soon. And this will bring up your local security policy console. As you bring this up, you can drop down these different areas in which security can be applied on your local machine. Some have more options than others. So I like to drop them all down so you can see what's available to be set. So then under account policies you have, for instance, password policy, where on your local machine you can enforce password history, password age, maximum and minimum password ages for those, minimum password links, for instance, and typically ours, this is domain, this is set at 7. You really want to have 8 or above on this because anything below 8 is easily hacked. It can be brute forced quite easily. So password histories, you would want to, and a typical setting for this is passwords are remembered for 12 months and then you can reuse them. But for a period of 12 months, you cannot reuse the same password. Maximum password ages. Sometimes, you know, you reset that password, it depends on what your policy is at your company, or wherever you work. But a lot of times you want that password age to at least be about 7 days before they can reset that password. Now there's going to be times that needs to be changed or subverted, like somebody forgets their password, then you're going to have to go in there and manually reset that password for them from an IT point of view. But once they set that, then they can't reset it again for 7 days is what that would mean. And so there are some complexity requirements. For instance, what are some complexity requirements that you can think of that you've had to do with your passwords? Like what do you have to have?
Well, you have to have a capital letter.
Okay.
Number. And that number,
Symbol.
figure, symbol.
Yeah, so special characters.
Yeah.
Special character.
And then at least like 8 characters long. So you see those a lot. Not just where you work, but you see that as well in banking. You don't want to have an easy password on your financial accounts. When you're logging into your credit card accounts. What are some other accounts that you can think of, or places that you visit on the internet that you want to make sure that your passwords are really strong?
Like
Our benefits, our insurance benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And loans, like if you have school loans. or-
Okay, so that's, again, those are financial places.
eBay,
eBay, so e-commerce, any place where
Mhm.
you're buying
Oh,
things and
yeah.
you're putting in your credit card
Yeah.
numbers, you want to make sure those are
Yeah.
secure.
also like my phone account,
Okay.
one strong password.
Mhm. Yeah, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. We also want to have what's called multi-factor authentication when we do that. So not just our username and password, that really doesn't suffice. It's like the weakest link when that's all you have. So a lot of banks have went to where you have username and password, and then they also send you a code that then you have to put in order to
Right,
authenticate
in our-
that.
yeah.
So that is a more of a multi-factor authentication technique, and iPhones have gone to the 2-factor authentication instead of just your fingerprint or just your PIN code. You have to have your fingerprint and your PIN code, and it seems like a lot more of a hassle, but is important in the realm of security for keeping our devices and our data safe. A few more other things that are on this local security policy is account lockout policy. So if someone were to type in their username, password wrongly 3 times, if you have that set, then it's going to lock them out, right? And if IT has it set in their policy and your organization that you then have to call them to get it reset, you may have to call them. You can also have the account lockout counter reset after a particular amount of time. So maybe after 30 minutes it resets and then you're able to log in again. This helps against any type of brute force attacks that malicious people could launch against your computer or if it's on a domain level, your organization. Last one I'm going to highlight here is the audit policy options. So this policy underneath local policies, you can set it so that it audits those account logins, so that if there are so many failed logins or whatever, it can send you a particular notification when that happens. There's a lot of softwares out there also that will monitor these audit logs for you, so you can put them on servers and even on local machines, and it will monitor that and notify you when somebody's trying to hack into your machine. So if there's too many log-on events that have happened that were failures, then it'll send you an email, or you can even configure them to send text messages to you to allow you to know that that's happening on your, and then you can
Is
subvert.
that similar to, like, you know, in our case here, like if we go and change our password, then we get an email that says, your password has been changed, if you were not the one that did it, then you need to
Yeah,
contact.
so they're,
Okay.
so that's something that they've set up on the domain that notifies you. And you'll get that from other applications
Yes.
as well when you
Mhm.
change things with your financial institution. I know Apple is one that you get that a lot. If you change your Apple ID or the password with your Apple
Right.
ID, it goes, hey, somebody's messing with this, and
This
so.
is not you.
Yeah.
Right, so those notifications are important, because if it happens and it's logged but nobody sees it, what good does it do, right? So we have to do something with those logs. And these logs are really long and hard to look through. So to have it as an automated process is much better than having it as a manual process. It's gonna fall through the cracks if it's just one person doing that, or even a group of people doing it. So I hit that password policy and the audit policy. The great thing also about this is if you're doing it on maybe a SOHO network, which is a small office, home office network, where you'd have to set up each individual machine, maybe they only have 5 machines, you can do it at one level, then export the policy and import the policy on the other machines, so that it doesn't have to be set up from scratch on each machine over and over again. And again, the way you get to that is the SEC POL, which is just short for security policy, right, .MSC, you type that into your search and you get that brought up. Another way for securing our machines is securing our web access, which is one of the main reasons that most of us have machines at all, right? For surfing the internet. And the way that we get to the internet is through our browsers. Who can name some browsers that they use?
Windows.
Firefox,
Okay.
Google,
Chrome.
Chrome.
Yeah, so a lot of different ones out there that you can use, and some of them are more secure than others and implement security policies in different ways. For the Windows level, and with Edge or Internet Explorer, whatever you choose to call it now, you can set your security from within the browser, or you can set your security in Internet Options, which is an applet that's found in the control panel on Windows. And a lot of people think that if you set your internet options in that applet in the control panel, then it applies to all of those browsers, but in fact it does not. It only applies to the Internet Explorer or the Edge browser. So if you're using Chrome or Firefox or Opera or Safari, you have to set those in those individual browsers. I was going to have you guys bring up machines so that you could look at these, but I will demonstrate some different things you can do with the browsers. So as I said, the Internet Options is where you would go for if you went to Edge. So you could go to Edge and then you're going to click these 3 dots over here and you're going to go to the settings, is how they have it labeled in Edge, to do your, close that, to do those, or you can go to the control panel. Large icons, because for me it's easier to find all these different things, and it actually drills it down to where you can find what you are looking for specifically. So in Internet Options you can set your security at a particular level. This one's on a domain, so the domain has set some of these for us, and if you're on an organizational domain, they'll set that from a global standpoint, so you can't change that as a user and then make your machine more vulnerable on the internet. You can have pop-up blockers turned on or turned off, and also you can allow exceptions. Some websites that we visit, we have to allow those pop-ups to happen, but we want those to be trusted sites too. That way we don't put ourselves at a disadvantage and make ourselves more vulnerable than we need to be. So that is for Edge and Internet Explorer. Now if we're dealing with, for instance, Mozilla Firefox, you're going to click these 3 lines over here and then go to Options. And in the Options tab, you can then set your different privacy and tracking protection and permissioning and all of those. And each one of these will have, they'll look a little different and they'll have a little bit different options, but most of them will have as far as some type of filtering that's happening on the network to keep out malicious sites, and then also some blocking pop-ups, so adware's not having its way on your machine, and then for forms and passwords, how you want those to be stored. It's less secure to store your passwords in the browser, so that's something you may want to consider when you're setting your policies and stuff, whether you want your people to be able to store those on the local browser or not. And then Google Chrome is very similar, except it has 3 dots that go up and down. So Internet Explorer's 3 dots that everybody has to be a little different, right? 3 dots that go horizontal, then Google Chrome has the ones that are up and down and you go to settings, and Mozilla just has the 3 lines there. But that's gonna take you then to those settings that you can secure your browser with. And the advanced, you want to see, whoops. So it's in the advanced area that you really set your different controls for privacy and security.
Is pop-ups in there? Cause that is.
It should,
In the bottom.
overlook it.
They're all different. and
They are all different, you really have to look around and
Yeah.
find out,
Where is that?
yeah,
That's fine.
See a
yeah.
pop-up.
I just was wondering
it's there somewhere.
if it's in
I
the
must have overlooked it.
drill down someplace else probably.
Mhm.
Or probably, yeah, one of these arrows you have to probably
There's cookies, there's pop-ups, so content settings.
content.
Yeah, so as you can see, they're each a little bit different, and you really just have to get in there and explore to see what yours are set at. And of course, they're gonna be set at a default level, and then you can either harden it further, which means you enforce more security on it, or you can make it more lax, but I wouldn't recommend